on WNYC. Let's check in with London and see what they're working on. Hello, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm James Menendez. Today on NewsHour, the row in Israel over an exemption from military service for young ultra-Orthodox men comes to a head. We'll find out what it means for Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition. Also, why Argentina is giving refuge to several Venezuelan opposition politicians at its embassy in Caracas. That's BBC NewsHour at 9 on WNYC.
49 with rain out there. Opening day for baseball. The Mets have been postponed at Citi Field. The Yankees played in Houston at 4:10 this afternoon. We will have periods of rain today, a high near 52. And then rain likely tonight by midnight, a low around 40. And then tomorrow, cloudy, then becoming sunny, mid-50s and gusty. Saturday, slim chance of afternoon rain, mostly sunny and 58. And then on Easter Sunday, it looks like those bonnets will be able to stay dry after all. Partly sunny and 61. Right now, 49 with rain, going up to 52 with periods of rain today. It's 8:51. This is Morning Edition on WNYC.
Support for WNYC comes from the Vital Projects Fund, supporting the Museum of Modern Art, where the exhibition Joan Jonas Good Night, Good Morning, tracing the artist's 50-year career, is now on view. Tickets at MoMA.org.
You love WNYC, but sometimes it's hard to listen all day long, and you might miss something important. We've got you covered with NYC Now. It's our local news podcast with 3 short episodes every day. We bring you the news of your city, your community. Listen to NYC Now weekdays wherever you get podcasts.
The no-choice kind of debt that is a leading driver of personal bankruptcy.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab, helping people invest in ideas they believe in with Schwab investing themes, with more than 40 themes to choose from. More at schwab.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. First, the effects on supply chains, yes, but also effects on the jobs and livelihoods for people who work at the Port of Baltimore, still cut off today from the main shipping channel after the highway bridge collapsed earlier this week. Marketplace's Henry Epp reports.
Over 15,000 people work directly at the Port of Baltimore, and over 100,000 more have jobs tied to the port's activity. And for now, there's still work for them since there's freight sitting at the port ready to be unloaded. But once that runs out, possibly within a week or two, a lot of work dries up. And there's not yet a clear picture of how long it might take to remove the fallen bridge so ships can bring in new freight. Maryland lawmakers are drafting a bill that would replace lost income for port workers, but they're under a tight deadline. The legislature adjourns April 8th. I'm Henry Epp for Marketplace.
Henry's in-depth reporting about this will be in the Marketplace Morning podcast later on. 7 of the largest U.S. sports betting books, including FanDuel and DraftKings, are launching a trade group to push what the industry wants to promote as safer gambling. Members of the Responsible Online Gaming Association will share best practices and the names of customers who've been banned from their platforms for problematic betting. This comes as Major League Baseball and the NBA each investigate high-profile betting scandals involving athletes. Here's Marketplace's Savannah Marr.
Americans legally wagered nearly $120 billion on sports in 2023, according to the American Gaming Association. That's up 28% from the year before. The rise of sports betting is also driving fan engagement, says Kenneth Shropshire, who studies the business of sports at Wharton.
People are watching games to the finish to make sure they win their money or to see their money fly away.
But he says leagues and sportsbooks have to manage perceptions around irresponsible gambling and addiction, plus athlete betting scandals that can cheapen sports.
Here we have the enterprises themselves coming together and saying, how can we provide consumer confidence?
The companies participating in this trade alliance are walking a tricky line, says Victor Matheson, an economist at the College of the Holy Cross.
Let's be serious. They're trying to get as much revenue as possible, and the way you do that is by getting people to gamble a lot.
He says the sportsbooks could be making internal rules to head off stricter regulations from state governments. I'm Savannah Marr for Marketplace.
Stock index futures are now little changed. Crude oil is up 1.7%, $82.75.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. Customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto. Learn more about bundling at Progressive.com. And by Disney, announcing that Disney will host its annual meeting of shareholders on April 3rd with the Board of Directors election. Learn more about voting at VoteDisney.com.
We're looking at medical debt this week, the leading cause of personal bankruptcies in America. What we're about to hear is drawn from a panel discussion with a live audience we held in St. Paul, Minnesota the other night. Among the panelists, Allison Sesso with a national nonprofit called RIP Medical Debt, Jennifer Schultz, University of Minnesota healthcare economist, and the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota and former Congressman Keith Ellison.
This is the debt that you and I don't ask for. You didn't ask to get cancer. So many aspects of medical debt are things that are a surprise that we don't have any chance to shop for.
I didn't fully understand this. If a spouse were to die,
right,
the other spouse is responsible for the debt?
The debt switches over.
Why is that?
Because the Minnesota State Legislature years ago was influenced by people with a lot of influence.
So would the act address that?
Yes, it would. It would ban that practice. We also would say that you couldn't be denied non-emergency care if you have an outstanding balance.
So that happens. So someone shows up and are in need, and they say, well, you got some debt.
We're trying to codify into law. You can't report medical debt to a credit bureau because you didn't ask for this debt. It is really not an indicator of your credit worthiness.
Jennifer, your views on pharmaceutical prices, because it can be complex.
As a country, we pay the highest prices for brand name drugs in the world. New this year, Medicare beneficiaries will not pay more than $2,000 out of pocket for prescription drugs per year. That is a huge win. You need to tell everybody about that.
So, Jen, these drugs cost a lot of money, but isn't it also true that we subsidize them as the taxpayer?
Well, most of the research on drugs is done at our R1 academic institutions that are paid for with NIH money that is paid for by our taxpayers.
But I mean, I should point out that it's not like the pharmaceutical companies don't put any money in, and most drugs don't work, but it still sets wrong.
Right, because the marginal cost of producing the drug once you have the patent or once you have something that's effective is very small.
I have an interesting follow-up question. What do you think will be the impact on medical debt of Ozempic, the weight loss drugs that seem very effective, but are expensive?
Well, if we can reduce the price and we reduce obesity, that can save in the long run. The government doesn't budget in long runs. It doesn't look at the savings over 10 or 30 years, but it could lead to actually reducing healthcare costs.
Julie has a question. It's quite practical. Are there free financial resources if they open up one of these bills and they know they cannot handle it?
Yeah, everyone should go to the hospital or the provider and ask about financial assistance. Tell your story. Whatever you do, don't put it on a credit card. Once you put it on a credit card, it's consumer debt. It's not medical debt anymore. Right. So all the protections he's putting in place will not apply. Also, be really mindful of signing up for this great plan that the hospital is telling you to sign up for that has either a high interest rate or you can't afford the monthly bills on. And definitely don't not pay your rent or other bills because you have a medical debt.
And they also shouldn't sign consent forms when they're in the hospital before they get care. You'll get the care even if you don't sign a consent form.
You have a choice?
If it's an emergency situation, they have to provide care.
Jennifer Schultz, University of Minnesota healthcare economist, RIP Medical Debt's Allison Sesso, and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. The Marketplace Live event was called Health and Wealth, Why Americans Are Drowning in Medical Debt. On YouTube, search our handle Marketplace APM and Health and Wealth to watch the whole conversation that has some more pro tips if you find yourself in this situation. And to our marketplace.org/healthwealth for more. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.